Story continued from Thaddeus and Tarquinus playlist. Vindication. We sit in our ships, orbiting a green and pleasant world. It has been quite a ride, ranging jumps ever onwards, out into the darkness beyond the Emperor's light, outside of our Imperium. I'm always struck by the enormity of the galaxy. When I was a youth, when I became a man, then as an Inquisitor. I have seen more of this galaxy than the vast majority of the human race. Still, despite the centuries of adventures, I am in awe at its splendor. But even more so now. I must admit, I was starting to lose hope that we would make any inroads, even be able to support ourselves. So vast out here. We have fled from system after system, lurching from one Mandeville point to the next, hunting for a port in a storm, anywhere we can hang our hat for a moment to take in our breath. Though now, there is a chance. We erupted out of the warp, and Auspex scans informed us that this system was mostly devoid of activity. Only one world, and no flotilla of potentially aggressive ships lingering over it like watchdogs. Whatever is happening out here, it is ramping up to boiling point. We are seeing entire fleets of ships and massive bases, armed and armoured to the standards of anything in the Imperium. Or so cursory inspection holds at any rate. It's not as if we barreled into these systems and got into close range now, is it? So finally, finding one that might not spell our instant doom is a blessing from he who sits upon the throne. I feel he guides us, even out here, beyond his light. Devlin and his squad have changed their routines. Being blocked into the one barracks room during the event was a wake-up call, all right. Now they are scattered between 3 dorms, with a few of them on constant patrol across the decks. Finally, they are on a war footing. Blast my eyes. I should have snapped them into this much earlier. We all felt so safe on our vessel, its metallic skin and bones purring out a soporific tune that dulled them all. Even I was distracted, too consumed with him. His tuition, progression. I had lost my edge. Time to get that back. In all this time, our crew has been frazzled, moving from 3 shifts to 4 to stave off some elements of fatigue. But before we reached the system, they were worn. The travel between here and the planet gave them a few days to recover, to rest. Barbon, Devlin, Bartholomew and the gang have kept busy. The Catachans placing traps and triggers all over the ship. Barbon has been filling his time with an accelerated training regime. Not his, but the redhead, Santara. They are frequently and regularly seen in the training rooms. I sometimes pass, and they are performing a slow ballet. Kata. Santara moving as he does, with incredible concentration, exceptionally slowly. And he stops to correct her form, leaning in to shift a foot here or a wrist there, adjust the shoulders and straighten an arm. I chortle quietly to myself. I remember this all so well. It is how he trained me, how he trained Pius, Somash, and Tah, and him. With the movements and stances as precise as he deems necessary to take this further, he will then speed up the movements, increase the tempo of the dance. One day, if she lives, Santara will be a passable swordsman. But Barbon gives far more compliments to her than I ever remember. He clucks and chivies her, but there is no harsh bark to his instructions. I think I may wind up giving him the same chat I gave Tarquinus about Ursula, just to see his hurt consternation. Not that he could do anything even if he wanted to. Poor sod. I wonder how well Santara is doing in firearms training. I guess I will find out when Barbon states she is ready. If I am honest, I hope that day will never come. I hope it will not be necessary. I desperately pray that we can end this matter without any more casualties, but I know deep down that this is a fool's wish. If we succeed and even one of us gets out of this alive, it will be a deed worth the price. Any price. We hunt arguably the most potent being in real space, after the god Emperor himself. Another perpetual, an ancient evil of yesteryear. We come to his own backyard in an attempt to root him out. But if we had not... Why is he out here? What is he plotting? We must know. We must follow the dragon to its very lair if we intend to kill it. What is he doing? It is a question that haunts my mind, bedevils my dreams. Despite it being the most pressing, it is not the only question I have. Will the Xenos, Ursula, and Josephus succeed? Pius is coming. Who is he now? Did age change or entrench his position? Who is the one? Alpharius. When will I move against the obvious traitor in our midst? Can I truly rely on Anhrad after Berenger 5? Will he do as instructed this time? So much to ponder. So much to resolve. Only time will tell. I must be ready. I have booked time with Barbon myself. I get up and push my face off the ground 100 times before I don my power armor each morning. I've reinstated my mental regimes, meditation, memory catalogue, and protections. Each evening before bed, when I am at my worst, I take the reflexes test on my gift from the Eldar. A handheld thingy he gave me so long ago that has these puzzles on it. Human, he assures me, but it looks too slick, too smooth, too clean to have ever been made by my people. Something older than the Imperium, he said. So I really need to make sure nobody ever sees it. Well, nobody but Barbon, mayhap. It seems simple, but it's actually very challenging. There are these different-shaped blocks that come down, and I must place them correctly. They move faster and faster. It's quite tricky, but leads to results. Hand-eye coordination, reaction time, all improving again. Statistics I've not had in decades are slowly inching up again. I will reach a natural plateau, of course, but I'm not there yet, and it all needs to be maintained. This is how I take my mind off my questions, by retempering myself, beating out any infirmities or deficiencies born of laziness. I am the Thaddeus. We are there. As our orbit harmonizes between the 4 ships in the flotilla, I open comms to the others. Our Auspex scans now give a much clearer picture. There are sentients below on the planet. They have clusters of buildings in many locations across the globe, but one stands out immediately. It has a simple but effective landing pad area. They have technology. Communications arrays have been spotted. There is not a dense population here, but many warehouses or buildings of similar size and purpose, we presume. It seems they are used to having guests. So, it is highly likely that they are traders. Vermilia and Sowlet look on. The head of the League of Votan contingent's eyes light up just that tiny bit as I nod to him. Karl Anhrad, you know the usual customs in this sort of first contact. Although they are indubitably going to be different in this sector of space, still, You have the experience. Let's be cautious, not spook them, eh? The kin warrior lord taps something into his gauntlet and snaps. I'll be candid and direct. We can discern if they need social niceties when we meet. Really? Yep. We want foodstuffs. May we come to negotiate a commodity you may want. Oh, no, we come in peace? Arnhard looks at me like I have just tried to sell ice to a space wolf. It's implicit. If we didn't, we'd have landed troops or crushed them with a targeted orbital bombardment. Gotcha. Well, make it so. He barks back at me. Already did. We have clearance to land in 2 hours. Huh, just like that? Just like that. For a face-to-face at any rate. Then, blurts I, then we haggle. No threats. Ever. Just haggling. Not even with ships in orbit aimed at them? Just playing Dark One's advocate? Nope. Never. They could have a subterranean cannon array secreted down there. No threats. Ever. Gotcha. I returned my gaze to the others on the call. So, any volunteers to do the meet and greet? Vermilia's half-eyed gaze is meant to be withering. I beam at her instead. Sowlot rolls his eyes and tuts, but he swings his head slowly from side to side in the negative. Just me then. Righto. So I'll send you an update when I get back. We only have permission for 1 ship, so pop over, Thaddeus. My transports are better armoured if it turns nasty. Fair enough. Be with you within the hour. I close off the comms and go get some bits and bobs. Trinkets for gifts. Translation devices of a mechanism I will never understand. I'm presuming the kin will have a way to converse with them. Anyone, really. But I take along my own in case there is a hurdle in that regard. Time to meet the locals. Finally. See what we can find out. And if we can get some more grub, of course. We are not even close to out yet. Not by a long chalk. But it has been weeks since we left that spaceport in the Imperium. And food is a need that is not negotiable. So off we head. What seems like weeks was actually only days. It now hits me like a battle barge. I am spent. But I have 2 more things to do before I can rest, before I can finally sleep. With the others around me still, I whisper in Ursula's ears one simple phrase. I will thank you later. She reddens so much, even I can detect it under all those gossamer veils. I then round on Louis. I walk the few paces to him. I do not bend down. I kneel on one knee, so my head is at his height. I take out the ring and go to hand it daintily back to him. Reverent in my motions, a look of abject thanks in my eyes as I stare into his. This saved my life. You, Louis, saved my life. But perhaps it is too much power for one so young. Louis grins back at me as he covers my hand in his, curling his fingers around my hand and gently forcing it back towards me. He then closes his eyes and nods as I accept it back. I then lurch forward and engulf him in a bear hug that would impress Barbon. He barks his strange derisive laugh and pats me on the back, then on the head. We separate, and he nods again. It is done. It is all he wanted. As far as he is concerned, the debt is repaid. His device did well, so he did as well. He really is a wonder. He asks for nothing, but gives to all. Taking so much effort to annoy Barbon, but always in good cheer. I have often wondered what is actually going on inside that ape's head. But I would never intrude. as powerful a telepath as I am, even now. He has earned not only my respect, but a blood debt. I owe him my life, and I will honour him and his kind until my dying day. Ilhavnarian the Solitaire has slipped from the celebration. It is his way. Another I must thank later. The Heart of Fire watches me like a hawk, inscrutable as always. Is that pride in his eyes? They are so shielded I cannot discern his mood. Why is this so disconcerting to me now? It must be the fatigue. Another full hour passes with pleasantries and fripperies, and I have to admit, I'm actually a bit put out that Thaddeus is not here, but I shall glean all of that from Ursula later. I down my drink, sigh deeply, and I excuse myself and head for my bunk. Yet, later, when I lay in my bed, I cannot get comfortable, cannot rest. I thought I would go unconscious the second my head hit the pillow, but after another half hour of turning and sighing, I know the reason. The second thing. I get up, I put on a robe, and I head out. And I find myself approaching Ursula's room. Before I even get to it, she feels me, senses my approach, and the door opens. It is dark inside. I step over the threshold, and the door closes behind me. We have concluded our trade. What an eye-opener. I am glad I did not take Barbon with me this time. Oh, he was grumpy, but he understood. Just Devrin and Belton of the Cathachans. There was little point this time. Anhad had an entire phalanx of his warriors present. And they were Xenos, but placid ones, so similar to us in so many ways. Simple farmers. They have technology, but no drive to expand, no wish to dominate or even to defend themselves. They could, but they choose not to. Not a single weapon exists in their culture. They know of them, have experienced them before, are aware of the meaning of the word war and everything that entails, but they could not condone it in any form, even for their own self-preservation. Or so they said, at least. And I detected no lie in their words. It is a necessary caution to conceive that their body language may be utterly different to our own, even that of the kin and Eldar, all I know quite well at this age, with my experience, along with Jacero and Greenskin and a couple of others. I've seen my fill of the orcs, I can tell you. But I was astonished at how open they were. Anhrad was in charge of the negotiations, and these placid creatures drove such a hard bargain that he came out beaming. For the kin, a haggling match is akin to a battle, and this one was an astonishingly fierce event. No voices raised, just calm ball breakers, trading different scenarios, contentions, objections, weights, transfers, and potentials. Anhrad and the Xenos, who called themselves the Koravor, which was also the name of their world, strangely, were exceptionally courteous and cheery after the event. Respect had been earned on both sides, not by strength or force, but by cold logic and phenomenal grit. They took to him far more than me. So, I asked if we could gain information from them also, for a price, of course. And this made both the head Koravor and the Cull not sigh or curse, but grin, as a second round of negotiations were performed. I left them to it and had a wander around. I had at least an hour, judging from the previous session. All knew this, and one of the Koravor were assigned to guide me. He escorted me through their installation, but where the kin got courteous smiles and curious ways, I gained sharp eyes and children hiding behind their mothers' skirts. They had witnessed humans before, and they had been given reason to fear us. Recently to boot. The Carl had arranged for the price and thought it exceptional, not because it was short or long, because it was exactly perfect. A price agreed by both parties in utter accord when all points had been made. Arnhard looked like he had just come out of a week-long sauna, genuinely and totally, unabashedly happy. And then we spoke to the head Corivores assigned Major Domo. He had the time for the details. This one and I had a long conversation. Difficult as it was with their translation devices or ours, some words had to be retermed and explained before we understood each other. But no question was skirted or sidetracked. The price had been paid, and they gave everything they knew of the locale. It was later that Arnhard and I spoke. He stated that the major hurdle had been me. The Corivore thought I was in league with the enemy, as I was the same, a human. Arnhard can be persuasive when he has the wind at his back. He overcame this with assurances and our history together. Perhaps the Corivore now knew too much, but after the enemy great crashed our little shindig, it was nothing he was not aware of anyway. But back to the information gleaned. I was told that this little planet had generally been left alone. Many different peoples had come to rely on their produce, or at the very least, to prize it. All had been quite calm out here for many decades at the very least, but recently the local stars had become awash with blood. Fleets had come to Corivore not just for food, but they had also dropped off injured warriors when desperate. The Corivore were exceptional healers, renowned in this region. Consummately neutral, they were used to plying their trades. None would wish to destroy them, as one can never be certain when their skills might be needed by their own armies. Nor would any assault on Corivore be worth the ire it would entail from every race in the region. Corivore had good food and great apothecaries, but neither of those in amounts worth the calumny. Yet a recent raid from human forces had seen the extermination of an entire city of theirs. City may have been translated, but it was more a village by the standards of the Imperium, a mere few 100,000 souls. They reported that the human forces had come out of nowhere and laid this city to waste. They had landed ground troops and invaded the capital, butchering everyone present while the rest of the world looked on in shock and terror. But just as swiftly as they had arrived, they left again. None of the Corivore were the wiser to why they had done this. They could not understand the barbarity. They chose not to at a minimum. After they had contacted some other worlds, friendly neighbors out there in the darkness, they were told it was not an isolated event. Such raids had been carried out against nearly every species or pocket empire in the vicinity. Someone was on the move, and this had whipped up a high's worth of trouble all over. Near every faction had now gone onto a war footing, vastly expanding their military production. Species who had tolerated each other for centuries, or even more, now performed picket passing and exploratory encroachments on each other's space. Border engagements had escalated, and shots had been fired. Someone had come in and upset a very finely balanced ecosystem, and that someone was using human soldiers and human ships. Or so it was said to the Corivore. All they knew was the evidence of their eyes and screens. It was humans, or those who looked like them, who had come to Corivore. But when pressed, their delegation did not recognize any of the iconography of the Imperium, not from the vids and not from word of mouth. So these human forces were not of the Imperium. One might think this a stupid question, considering the circumstances and the geography. They forget the antiquity of our time amongst the stars. A score of crusades have gone missing outside the bounds of the Emperor's light. And that is only during the 10,000 years the Imperium has existed. Humans have been out here in the void since the dark age of technology, even before. This micro-empire of humans could be older than the Golden Throne. How could we tell? The one thing the Corvor could or would not give me that would have helped the most was a map. But they had little interest in leaving their world, so had even less interest in knowing the exact borders and boundaries of their neighbours. I marvelled at them, their sheer naivety. They had survived all this time, was their argument, and it was cogent, incontrovertible. They had indeed weathered the universal galactic storm, for otherwise there would be no one for me to talk to. But how? How had they survived this long in this galaxy? The transfer of our metals for their consumables was both swift and efficient. I could have spoken with the Seneschal all day, but we had only paid for so much time. And when the loads had been completed, our ships cleared for takeoff, the Corvor escorted me back to the landing pad and ended our discourse. I would truly have loved to bring up their history, to learn their lore. I would have also liked to sidelong discern if they had any knowledge of, or dealings with, the dark gods of chaos. What hold did they have out here? But this was not to be. Still, just like Antrad, I did not feel cheated. They had done exactly as had been contracted. They may be pacifist, but by Ultramar's 500 stars did they stick to the letter of the agreement. A perfect way to almost guarantee repeat custom. Honesty. After all these years, what a breath of fresh air. I had to constantly remind myself that they were Xenos, should never be trusted. I would make an awful member of the Ordo Xenos. It wasn't that I didn't find them an abomination. I am a servant of the Emperor, a true human. I just found them so interesting. And what harm did they really do? Content that maybe the food was poisoned, or that they would sell us out to the next visitor, I proceeded professionally. But it was a very good thing that Barbon did not come. He cannot help but sneer at them all, even Louis much of the time. Barbon may be many things, the perfect knight, the best friend a man could ever hope for, but he is also utterly without guile. If he does not like something or someone, there is absolutely no way they will not be able to discern this. I have requested him to control his features before, which of course he does, but Barbon, as an Astartes, has a resting face that would make a Krieger run for cover. He often elicits the most terror when he dons his stern face, but this is only followed closely behind his neutral mane. A blessing he did not force the issue this time and remained on ship. But then, he's trying to show the Catachans that he trusts them, and we detected no power signatures for weapons that would have been able to pierce my powered armor. Ah, the warpaint of the Astartes is a shallow and turgid thing when worn by we normal humans, is what Barbon has often said. But it really is practically impervious to the vast majority of weapons in this galaxy. And mine is even better than usual. If you think Barbon has a nice refraction field, you should see mine in full swing. So we did rock parchment chainsword to end the discussion. I, of course, always win, but he knows when I invoke this process that he is to let me have my way. So he always puts up chainsword. I put up rock, and he pretends it is fair. So he agreed to stay. We know a little more than we did before. Not nearly enough to move forward with confidence, but it's a good start. And that is when my least favourite noise blurts out across the decks again. The lights turn red, and it drones out. "Captain Petrius and Inquisitor Thaddeus to the bridge. We have contacts." I burst out of my reverie and hoof it up to the bridge. Barbon and Devlin are already there. "Report," says I, as Petrius scales the steps up to his command throne. He takes in the information and then barks out. "We have 2 ships coming in our direction fast. The same silhouettes and specs as the ones we witness annihilate that flotilla of mid-ton Xenos vessels." Barbon shifts and mumbles to me. "That's yet another mark against trusting Xenos. You've been sold out again, old man." I scowl up at Barbon, then ignore him as Petrius continues. "There is no warp space rent. They did not appear from behind a moon or other celestial body." "What does that mean to anyone who has not served for decades in the Navis Imperialis?" Petrius looks down at me. "It means one of 2 things, sir. They were always here, waiting, or they have cloaking capability." "Do what?" "An old ability that we lost as a race, sir. The cloak surrounds a ship with distortion fields that make it impossible for Auspex to detect until they are ready to strike." "If that is true, then why are we able to see them at all, and not receiving a broadside at point-blank range?" He retorts, "Everything on a ship has a cost in size, tonnage, or energy. It is highly likely that if they have cloaking devices, they consume the majority of their energy reserves. It is also likely that they only mask most of the energy output at range. The closer they get, the more likely we are to spot them. With all their energy in cloaking, they would not be able to erect void shields or concentrate power into their macro cannons or whatever weapons they use." "Well, that told me. Well done for being precise, Captain, especially under the circumstances. How close are they? Options?" "They are moving so fast. They will be within weapons range in mere minutes." "Options?" 3 as always, sir. We run, we fight, or we jump." "Tactical evaluation, Captain. What do you advise?" "We cannot outpace them, so we cannot run. That would give them clean shots at our arse, the place we have the least shielding, least armor, and least returning fire. If we engage the jump engines now, it could be catastrophic for the system. We are nowhere near the Mandeville Point and only hundreds of miles away from this inhabited world." "Worst case scenario, Petrius, and fast." "Best case, we escape into the warp, and the planet is only minorly affected. Tsunamis, earthquakes, potentially for years. Worst case, we tear the atmosphere of the planet and end up exploding as the warp engines overrun our intent, scattering us in equal parts across the materium and across the warp." "Righto. On my mark, take us into them, Captain." Open comms. 3 more faces appear, Anhrad, Vermilia, and Sowlet again. "Anhrad, it's time," he belts back. "Confirmed. Finally." "Vermilia, I'll back him up for close range duking it out. You have superb long-range firepower, so hang back and flay them at range. Sowlet, you head out. We cannot afford to lose you nor the content of your vessel. So peg it." And I cut the communication instantly as Sowlet and Vermilia open their mouths to speak. But they will do as I instructed. As it plays to their drives and ego, it is also the best tactical option. I then turn formally to Captain Petrius. "In the Emperor's name, I cede command to you. Prosecute this battle in his name. Bring honor to his name. For the Emperor!" All present slam their arm to their chest in salute. Petrius stands and barks the orders, elevations, patterns, and speed. He looks 100 foot tall up there. "Match speed with the League's vessel. Prepare all forward lance batteries and open missile bay doors." A subaltern turns from his desk. "Sir, datagen incoming!" A bell goes off, and the red-robed priests of Mars hunch over illuminated screens. One that is hard-lined into the decks fizzled and sputtered, as if wrestling with an exterior force, like it was possessed. But this passed, and the priest regained control. Our ship's systems are under advanced attack by the weapons of the Mechanicum. Or this is a very advanced set of adversaries. Even I understand that. It is just a pair of ships, but I remember the way they sunk a whole flotilla. But Petrius was watching as well as I, even more intently perhaps. He signals for reports, and they are given. he sends a missive to Anhrad, and it begins in earnest. They both take on attack speed. The enemy's coming right at us. I watch the chevrons on the displays, as we and then the enemy launch missiles. Ours pass theirs in the void, but disappear when they get closer to their target. It is as if each has been turned off in some form of wave, but they may have been neutralized by defensive fire. Their missiles come at us faster. We just launched earlier. There are not many of theirs, but they are tough to hit. Our defense array and that of Karl Anrad's ship go overtime, but it finally swats them out of the air. The kinship of Anhrad's has plenty of point defense weapons, and they clear their lane as well. The enemy then open up. Petrius is not shaken, but I can see he is surprised. It will be a full minute until we are within range of our weapons. The lance fire from the ship aiming at us strikes along the armoured prow. Feet of metal are burned away in seconds, but that is all. But they hit the League ship harder, as it is anything but nimble. Again, only doing damage to a few yards of its front and flank. Petrius was aghast for a split second. The crew burst into shouting in panic. They were all shouting about void shields. They did not leave their position, as Petrius bellows one word. Order! They all instantly returned their heads to their tasks. Petrius received a message and ordered a minor course adjustment as we closed. This did two things. One, the next barrage from the enemy ship shot into the void above us. And two, the retorting fire came not from Petrius, but from Vermilia's ship. A nasty central cannon fired and slammed into the front of our combatant. It was hard to make out the damage on the vid screens due to light saturation when it struck, but other scans showed a severe level of damage had been sustained. Vermilia had torn down their void shields in the one strike, and Petrius snapped the order to veer starboard. The enemy came on as our ship turned about 30 degrees. Our beast moaned under the pressure as her rump came out despite the thrusters, but she aligned again as Petrius ordered, Fire! And a full rolling broadside of our macro cannons tore into the front and flank of the enemy. Mainly the flank. Our ship shook as one after another of our guns reported, hurling their cargo into the void. The first impacts were on the remaining void shields of the enemy, but they cracked and came down, as there were so many offline due to Vermilia's previous fire, and most of the shells from our broadside struck the enemy. The thing was ablaze across many decks, and its front section hung off it. On the other side, the enemy had attempted to underrun the mammoth kin ship, but had been rudely surprised by the firepower of the leagues of Votan. Where Petrius had used skill and accuracy, Anhrad has used sheer firepower. Both enemies were blazing wrecks as they passed between us. Vermilia fired again, and the ship turned into a star as its engines detonated. Faster, longer-ranged, cloaked, with weapons that could fire past our shields. This initially looked bad. Why did they get smashed so easily? Then someone spots it. Captain, a set of transports has been launched from each ship. There are dozens of them. Petrius snaps back. Are they attempting to close with us? Boarding could be their goal. Negative, Captain. They are heading for the planet's surface. Bring us around. Petrius looks to me. We have to turn, and they may get there before us, by some margin. I nod, and send a message to Vermilia. She is moving to swat as many as possible. If they attempt to board her ship, she has the Cybernetica. And Saulat surprises all, as his vessel darts in at an oblique angle, punishing these transports with what little firepower he has, but being too fast for the shuttles to follow or board him. Between them, half the transports are gone, but half get past them and headed straight for Korivor. I cannot believe it. I am a genius. Yes, I am. I've just managed to escape being crispy fried by a Catan. I live! But the cost. In hindsight, maybe genius is a bit strong. Did they know of me before, as they said, or did I gain their attention by trespassing in their very realm? Liars all. But what do I make of that? What was said? But, on the other hand, the gains. I have my skin back, but I also have something else, something potent. A detail, his true name. This is no small thing. Why did they give it to me? Why? Rubute languishes at my feet, keeping them warm. It's so damn good to be out of that power armor. Just as I am beginning my routine, to turn my brain off, to quiet my soul ready for slumber, I hear the door chime. I get up, of course, and open it. Nobody. Wait a sec. There is the back of the jester walking away. I step out and follow as he turns a corner. I head off in slow pursuit. Along another corridor, through 2 open bulkhead hatches. Down. I am just behind him. He turns every corner, just as I make him out. I finally get to an open door, a large bay. It is dark inside. Mysterious. I've just about had enough of mystery for today, but I step inside and bark out. Enough! It's been a very, very, very long day. Show yourself. What do you want of me? Lumens burst into life above us as the door closes behind me. 3 points of light highlight 3 people. Me, the solitaire, and then finally, the farseer. My ally speaks first. Did you think we would not know? Not hear it, not feel it, smell it. The farseer interrupts my reaction. You return, but you reek. What deal did you do, Inquisitor? Who now owns your soul? I'm floored. My mouth goes fish mode. My lips flap wide in a gawp. Is this a joke? No. Havnarian slowly draws his blades. The heart of fire steps further into his light. He is carrying his moaning spear of judgment. Oh dear. Think fast, Tarquinus, think fast. Fight and die. Or don't fight and die. Fight it is, then. My mouth opens in an attempt to buy time. Why? Why come out here? Why help me if you were going to then execute me anyway? The farseer retorts. We didn't know you would kneel before them. Suffer not the unclean to live. No. Only days ago, you would have agreed with us. His mouth is working, but just like me, his mind and soul are doing something else. Glyphs burn into existence, rotating around his form like arrows to be plucked and launched. My own wards burn into existence. Patterns he recognizes. Those are the ones I let he and the solitaire see. I weave more below and beneath them. The solitaire stalks into the darkness at my side. Is the 30 suit not yet turned on? After everything I showed you, everything I told you. Traitor, he hisses. The ultimate paradox. If I mentally call for assistance, whoever comes through that door walks into certain death. If I do not, I'm no match for one of them, let alone both. No. I am an ordained Inquisitor. I must do this alone. I am his hammer. Time to show what I have learned, and hope it does not damn me further in their eyes. I need only make them see sense. My mouth works again as my mind makes its move. I have much to tell you, much that needs your wisdom, master. I met them, traded words, heard their offers, but I rejected them, and I can prove it. The Heart of Fire retorts, No, Tarquinus, you will die, and your soul will fly to its new master to be consumed for all eternity. It begins. The farseer launches 100 tiny runes at me, each rising from the stitching on his robes. They fly at me and collide with my wards, like a whirlwind of light smashing at me. This is to blind, to hide the true attack. I rolled forwards and then to my side. My own Eldar warglyphs absorbed into my body, my spirit, making me faster, stronger, more aware, more nimble. The solitaire is already rising from where I stood and cartwheeling after me. And then the Farseer unleashes a pattern in my direction. It is dark and dire. He attempts to rewrite my strands of fate, to curse me with unluck. A net that will doom me. I can see it clearly. I have never been taught this spell, yet I understand it. I can feel the warp so easily now. Like a short-sighted man granted glasses, it has all come into focus. I reach deep. I cannot hope to match his skill, so I must hope in sheer short-term expenditure of power. I pull his hex apart with a wash of unfettered energy, burning out many of my wards. I physically continue to duck and run, keeping distance from the solitaire. Despite all my enhancements, I am barely his speed. He nearly catches me at a corner until I invoke further runes to temporarily mask my existence and disappear. Yet he can hear my breath, my frantic footfalls. The Farseer is now clasping his hands together. He slowly draws them apart, blue worms of lightning crackling between his fingers, building as he expands his hands. All the while small runes still flash from his cape and fly after me wherever I go, slamming into my wards, stripping them away, slice by slice. I can't do this. Not on the defensive. Time to attack. Nope. The ball of energy from the Farseer flies out like, well, a bolt of lightning. I dive as far as I can beneath it. Worms of it crackle down to jolt my back and legs as it passes over me by a mere meter. I land hard and know what's coming, and I'm right pissed off. I take a risk. Well, I've bugger all to lose, as Thaddeus would say. I invoke the images of my people. Time to turn the tables. I roll as best I can as I land. Still skimming across the deck, I turn and unleash. My turn. I invoke the tower. A card-like image appears before my mind's eye, and I superimpose it over the Farseer, bringing him into the frame. It happens. The deck below the Heart of Fire explodes up, but he is Eldar. He felt it and leapt and rolled into a ball as he flew. Yet as he did, a lightning bolt of my own slammed down out of the darkness. Yet he is a Farseer. The energies got to within an inch of him before his helm flashed, and the forces became winged butterflies, crackling away before dissipating. All of this while the solitaire came at me. I cartwheeled away from him, then slid and invoked the chariot. I sped away as if carried by a tide of force, moving fast, avoiding walls, but the cabin bay is not high enough to properly evade the killer swordsman by going up. In those fleeting seconds, I mimic the power of the Eldar, but with a human twist. I invoke strength. A huge man made of energy appears and assails my friend. But there is a kicker at the end, for I have also invoked the star, hidden within it, my ace in the hole. The Heart of Fire advances, diving and then twisting in the air, and hits me with it all. His arm extends and his spear comes at me. His left hand twists and fingers flutter as he unleashes a temporal wave pattern in my direction. I can't help it. It might be the stupidest thing I've ever done, but I smirk. Fresh from the deep umbra, I see it, I know it. I've just escaped it. I will not suffer it again. A temporal wave. I will do or die. I reach behind me, but not just with my hand, with my mind, my soul, my faith. Light blazes, silhouetting me as I close my hand around a hilt. I bring my hand over my head and stand with my summoned temperance. I remember the Astronomicon, the Emperor's love, and I force power through the blade, and it bursts into light. It burns away the patterns that would trap me again, but I know I could never have stopped them both. No time to block or parry. I hold my stance, and the spear howls as I see it coming in slow motion. I really hope I've not misjudged this. The pain is almost too much to bear as the spear slices through my ribcage, shattering at least 3. It slices through my sinew and sails out the other side. The stench of burning flesh is nauseating. It's my flesh. That's me I'm smelling. I can barely breathe. He's taken one of my lungs. I know it. The pain. My knees give out. I scream at the ceiling. I dare not fall forwards. Temperance glows still, but I can barely breathe. I gasp in shallow gulps. The stench. I grit my teeth as he pads towards me, the spear returning to his right hand. The spear should have hit me in the heart or the face. I adore my masters, all of them. But, as brilliant as the Heart of Fire is, he is a broken record. He requires proof. He stands before me, looking down. Any last words, my pupil? He sneers. Yes, I state. 3. Look over there. I nod to the solitaire. The energy being is gone. The solitaire slew it easily. Then my true message began. The star. And there was Ilhavren, the solitaire, beholding a play. Dreams in light form showed a miniature figure walking and running. Then it met with the 3 other beings, as my tiny simulacrum of Ursula takes my part. As I show my friend my own dance with the Dark Ones, just as he had shown me his. And as we watched, Ilhavren knew. When me as Ursula held her staff and ran from the Dark Ones, he knew. My friend, the Accursed One, takes off his mask and now holds his bare face in his hands, swords now set aside. The Heart of Fire looked down at me. This proves nothing. Through gritted teeth I spat. We all have to learn in different ways. That was his. This is yours. I let temperance roll from my hands, and with the last strength within me, I rise up. I grab my master's mask with both hands. He is shocked. I could feel it. His most powerful attack appears instantly. My eyes wide, I scream, "Do it, master! Do it!" And he did. A burning sigil appears in the millimeters between our faces, the ultimate sanction. The duel to the death. Mind war. Beyond his belief, I now push my own power into the glyph, augmenting it by factors. He tried to pull his head away, but I did not let him. My eyes challenged him. He had no choice. He completed the glyph, and it erupts. Mind war. Where the 2 souls are linked like twins in a womb, as if personalities and souls are tsunamis crashing towards one another. Only one can succeed. Only one can survive. The other will be washed away, mind and soul. And, with my own witch sight, I saw the towering colossus that was Tan Irenaid. It was a pillar of flames, unquenchable. And then he comes towards me and falls into my trap. Fire burns all before it, but it cannot burn fire. What have I learnt through all of this? That the glyphs of war destroy their enemies of the ancients. His mind swamped mine, his soul encircling and surrounding, suffocating mine. But I permit him entrance to everything. No resistance was offered to any part of him from any part of me. And in surrender, I showed him my soul unprotected, unshielded in any way. Though made of fire, Ilhavren, Tan Irenaid's soul did not burn mine. For there was simply no enemy within. Nothing for him to fight. An eternity in a second. It was over. As our eyes return to normal, as our attention comes back to our normal senses, the pain, I falter. But he steadies me as we slump down, back onto our knees. He held my shoulders so tight. Then his helm floated off his head, and his face was a picture of wide-eyed awe. And all he could say was, "You came back." Tarquinus, you came back to us. I, of course, managed to sputter. Do you mind showing me again how good you are at healing? To be continued.